What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of The Dig, a series dedicated to helping you improve profitability on your farm.
Today we are out in, I would normally say like windy, hot Goner, Nebraska, but it's actually kind of cool today, so it's a welcome change. We're out here in Goner today, though, standing in front of our air reel, and that's going to be kind of the topic of this whole episode today. But before we get into that, I'm Aaron, and this is Colin.
Let's dig in! Yeah, so like Aaron mentioned, we're here in Goner, Nebraska with our air reel here, and we actually have one in Olivia, Minnesota too. So we have two of them within our PFR farms, and that's actually got us to thinking, can we put maybe some numbers and look at our header loss with these, with and without this, which is why we've created a study looking at that air reel study.
Yeah. You know, I would say over the last 5-10 years, these things have become pretty popular. And most of the guys that run them, they seem to swear by them. So we're excited to see the results from the study this year. You know, I've never operated one. I don't think you've ever operated one. So kind of jealous we don't have one in Atlanta, but you know, maybe one of these days we can get one.
Right.
For those of you that aren't familiar with how these work though, and what all goes into it, we're actually gonna do a little bit of a deep dive, I guess, into it and show you all the parts and the details, and maybe even run it a little bit, and maybe we can find a way to show the airflow. I don't know.
Yeah.
Get us a book of paper and throw it out there.
Maybe.
So for those of you that aren't familiar with these air reel systems, basically what we have is a PTO-driven blower motor that attaches to the backside of the head. That air is then going to travel from the blower up through this tube, over to the air reel itself, where we've got another hollow tube running all the way through, and then these little fingers that are coming off. That's going to blow air out about 220 miles an hour.
All right, Aaron, so we've all been there. We've been harvesting dry beans, right? We can see those beans popping out of those pods. And we believe this is where one of these air reels could come into play. Again, being able to capture every single soybean, but there's some efficiencies to be had too, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, you think about sometimes you're cutting beans, you get those slugs of beans that might come in, right? And so, in my mind, this air reel is probably gonna help distribute things a little bit more evenly across the head too. So maybe even be able to pick up, you know, a little bit of speed while we're cutting beans. That's something we're gonna have to wait and see, but in my mind, it makes sense.
Yep. All right, and so there's a couple adjustments we can do on this, right? So the number one being the airspeed, right? You mentioned 220 mile an hour, right? That's a lot of air. Maybe in some instances we don't need that much air, so we can dial that back, right? And then we look at these fingers, so the airflow, we can affect the fore and aft of this, so we can change that direction on are we blowing right on the sickle? Are we blowing just right above the sickle to flow everything into the auger? There's different things we can do in that. How about we fire this thing up and we can show them exactly some of those adjustments?
I think that's a good idea.
All right.
You can go do it.
All right, so in this machine, we mentioned before how we can throttle back that flow, the airflow, right? And so on this machine, it's essentially just two toggle switches. One to throttle back the air, the other one to adjust your fingers. Essentially, if you guys can see down there, there's an orange arrow that's kind of like a butterfly valve, and what that's doing is that's just throttling back the airflow out of that blower. We're essentially just running it with the toggle switch, running it back and forth to be able to make sure everything's flowing into the head like we want it to.
All right, well, that's all we have for you guys today here on this air reel. Obviously, this one is made by Crary. There are other air bar brands out there though. This just happened to be the one that came on this particular header when we bought it. We'll have some data coming out in the PFR book though this winter, so be sure you check that out once we do release the book. With that, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that little bell icon to get notifications when new videos come out. And with that, we'll see you again on another episode of The Dig.
Done. Is my hat straight?
Yeah.
Bunching of the beans. You know how we sometimes we'll get some bunching of beans coming into the throat.
All right.
I said bunching a lot.
You need to slow down.
I know.
All right. Well, hey,
that's hold on.
All right. Yep.
Okay.
All right. So that's all we have for you guys.
I wasn't ready. Go.
All right, that is all we have for you guys today here on this Crary air reel.